Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Life Tech and Beauty. Today, I'm joined by a very special guest. I'm joined by a software engineer who works at Microsoft. She has over 120,000 subscribers on YouTube, tens of millions of views across her social media platform. Very excited to announce that Pooja is joining us for an episode. So, how are you
Hi.
doing, Pooja?
Good. How are you? Thanks for such a nice introduction.
Right. Well, Pooja, one thing I guess I'll explain to people as well. You currently work at Microsoft as a software engineer. At the
Mhm.
same time, you're also have a very big social following as well. So over
Mhm.
123,000 subscribers on YouTube, as well as like tens of millions of views on YouTube. You also post content on Instagram and some other social channels. So I wanted to, so this, some of the questions that I'll be asking you for this episode, and we have some live audience as well. So if you guys are watching this on YouTube,
Mhm.
remember, if you click the link in the description, you can join our group. So you can join our next sessions live to ask our guests live questions. But some of the things I want to focus on is around your work, your content creation, you being a content creator, and some of like the things you use to build your online presence. So I guess for starters, we'll start with just a general introduction, like with yourself into your journey, how you
Mhm.
got into tech and content creation.
Yeah, awesome. So my name is Pooja, as Mohammed mentioned, and I started in tech by going to university, kind of the traditional route. And at first, I didn't actually want to do computer science. I was planning on majoring in biomedical engineering. And then I realized I wasn't very good at chemistry and I didn't like it very much either. But I did like computer science because I had to take an intro to computer science class. So I started exploring that route a little bit more. And I started taking like data structures and algorithms, discrete mathematics, different math and software engineering classes. And I ended up liking it a lot. I have a couple videos on my channel that actually talk about my journey in school as well. I wasn't the best student, but I enjoyed the content of it. So afterwards, I joined a startup and I worked remotely. And I was actually living in Greece for a little bit as well, which was really fun. One of the perks of being a software engineer, and this was before COVID as well. And then I joined Target for a little bit. And I was a software engineer there, got promoted to senior software engineer, and then I eventually made the switch to Microsoft. And I've been at Microsoft now for over 3 years. And I actually started the YouTube channel right when I joined Microsoft because I, during my journey between Target and Microsoft, I had interviewed at so many different big tech companies and I had failed so many interviews. And I was seeing a lot of content online about success stories, but not as many failure stories. So I decided to start making videos about my failures just to see if other people might resonate with that story. So.
And 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 how did that grew from like you just documenting your stories, your failures in the industry, versus to like now creating content on like teaching people how they can start their own careers, etc. Like, how did you start taking this more seriously?
Yeah. So I think in the beginning, I was doing it more for fun and just more to help people. And I still really want to make videos to help people. But after a while, it started becoming really enjoyable to go through the process of scripting, editing, filming footage, and also like doing funny skits. I actually used to have a YouTube channel when I was a kid, back when like iJustine was big and Jenna Marbles and all of them. I don't know if people remember watching them.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, yeah. And I used to make YouTube videos back then. That account is gone now, so no one can find it. So yeah, so I think it ignited my love for making content. Once I started making those initial videos. And when I saw that I was getting good viewership, I wasn't getting good viewership in the beginning, but when I started to kind of do like a day in the life video here or there, or I started to like show my life as a software engineer at a big tech company. Um, I was watching Ali Abdaal videos and he mentioned having an unfair advantage. And so I think I stumbled upon that without realizing that I had that unfair advantage. And so that's when the videos started taking off. So I realized, okay, I can continue with my love for YouTube while also maybe helping people and getting the views that I want to help me, like to help validate me moving forward. So yeah, and here we are. I'm still doing it. I've been doing it for 3 years and I love it. every single morning I wake up really excited about YouTube. I think I'm super, it's like something I'm very passionate about. I've never felt that way about any other job, even software engineering, to be honest. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, because it's something of your own, right? Like content creation, building
Hmm.
a brand, like that's you. Like no AI is gonna replace that. Like that's it's
Hmm.
and so now what's your content strategy now? Because now you've already talked about like your journey, shared
Hmm.
like some of your lessons that you've learned in tech. So what do you focus
Hmm.
on now primarily?
Yeah, so I think I have to adapt according to what the audience wants to see as well. So, like when I first started, it was a lot easier to get in the tech industry. So I think any sort of intro to, like leet code or intro into this type of career type of video would do well. But now I think it's a lot less saturated and it's much more competitive to get in the field. And so I'm starting to shift to doing more like technical videos. That's what I'm noticing is doing well. And honestly, that's what I would like to start doing again because there's only so many career advice videos you can make until it gets pretty repetitive. So yeah, so I'm going to start going a little bit more technical. That's my strategy right now. Eventually, it would be really nice to do more docu-series. I've experimented with that as well, where I interview either professionals or people going through a certain event. So, for example, we had layoffs recently at Microsoft. So, just interviewing a bunch of people that maybe went through those layoffs just to tell their story. I think it'll help. Number one, maybe if an employer sees the video, it'll help them potentially get a job, or it'll also just help other people resonate with them if they're also getting laid off. So, it's just a way to relate to people and kind of the struggle of the industry right now.
And how do you focus on so you create content around and now one of the things that I also personally struggle with is just
Mhm.
packaging in general. That's like my arch nemesis. Is just like there's
Mhm.
like one of the things I love about your videos, and I've been following you for I think over a year and a half now. When I discovered you initially,
Mhm.
the first video I discovered from you was the I I I don't know how to code or
Oh,
I think
like
it's
the
no
I'm bad at coding
yes,
video?
I'm bad at coding. Yeah, that one.
Okay.
Yeah. And one of the things I love about your videos is one, they're so information dense, right? Which is a good thing, which is like the baseline for every video. But then they're also entertaining to watch as well. Like once you watch it, it's
Thank you.
like it's like a tech, kind of watching like a slide of a like a like a Mr. Beast stylish like it's actually like
Mhm.
retaining your attention. Like it's
Mhm.
entertaining and it's educational as well. So how do you blend
Mhm.
those two? Like that's been my biggest struggle with like so I run this channel as well.
Mhm.
And then just like how do you blend entertainment and education together and what's the effort required behind the scenes for that?
Yeah, I think if you're genuinely enjoying making the videos and the topic that you're discussing, I think experimenting a bit is kind of necessary. So in the beginning, the videos weren't like that at all. And just to clarify, I also now have an editor that's really great and also really great at storytelling. So that's helped a lot as well. But I think in the beginning, for example, I never had skits. The first few videos on my channel were just me sitting on a couch and just relaying information that I had scripted on a laptop. As time went on, my strategy was watching channels that had millions and millions of views that were not in tech. So these were kind of like you mentioned, Mr. Beastificated videos. So they were very fast paced, they were very entertaining, they had nothing to do with education. And so I started making more edutainment type videos because I also noticed that there were a lot of great educational videos out there, but sometimes the ones that I would watch to learn like data structures and algorithms again for my leak code interviews, sometimes they weren't that fun and they wouldn't really retain my attention. And so I tried to combine those entertainment channels with education and zeroed in on that computer science aspect. And so I would add like funny skits. It would be really fun to go out and buy costumes or like just write, back and forth commentary between myself. Like I would be the only other person acting a lot of times in my scripts. So yeah, I think it's a lot of experimentation. I guess I don't really have one answer for that. Sorry. But yeah, I think like if you let your imagination run wild and you just try different things, sometimes it'll work and sometimes it won't. And it just so happened that that style worked for a bit. Now, that being said, now that style isn't working as much because my audience and my demographic has changed. So my audience was much younger back then as well. Now they've gotten, not that that audience has gotten older, but my new audience members that are coming in are older, and it's a different demographic. So I think my style has also started to slowly shift, where I'm doing less skits and comedy, and it's a lot more information packed.
I see. And I guess we can continue this theme on another thing I wanted to ask is, so in your YouTube journey so far of 3 years, and plus you also create content on other channels as well, you've experimented with different types. What's been some of the takeaways, like some of the key lessons that you would advise someone who's now looking to make an online brand for themselves? Like some key
Mhm.
things that you've learned. One of them like being acknowledging like your audience, etc. What would some
Mhm.
of those things be?
Yeah, so I think being genuine is probably the most important thing online. Number one, because I think people can sense when you're like being fake or you're just like putting on an act. And so like and I've made mistakes like that. Sometimes, I read about YouTube strategy and they some of the strategy is the camera will kind of take away your energy. So you have to be even more animated and more energetic in a video. And so I used to do things like that to kind of increase the energy of my videos. But it wasn't necessarily who I was. And I think people probably sensed that. And I can see that in the comments as well. So I think people are more like you can be more of a magnetic personality if you're just yourself. Because if you think about it, when you make a new friend, when you first meet them, maybe they won't become your friend right away. But if you see them over and over and over again, and you feel that you can trust them because they're telling the truth, and their personality doesn't necessarily fluctuate a lot, then it feels like you know that person really well. And so I was trying out different like characters and having fun with it, but then at the same time, it was confusing the audience, I think. So now I try to make the videos just to like who I am and what my personality is. And I think that's started to do, I think that's better for me at least. So that's number one, being very genuine.
So like
And then
showcasing
number,
your personality, because that's what
mhm,
people connect with. Because like you can, like similar would say like we'll take Mr. Beast as an example. Like at
mhm,
this point, like whatever Mr. Beast does will just get attention because it's Mr. Beast who's doing it. Like people want to watch that
mhm,
personality go through that. So I think that's very
mhm.
important. Sorry, continue. So point number
Yeah.
two.
No, no, that's totally fine. And I think like to your point earlier, with AI replacing a lot of media nowadays, that is the one thing that is truly yours. So I think even if you're teaching a very specific skill, maybe you'll say, okay, AI can just like research that skill and then talk about it. But I think these videos that people are watching on YouTube, they do want to feel connected to the speaker. So I think that's a really big part of it. There's so many things that I think are important that I've learned, but one of the other things is adaptability. So the idea that you have for yourself when you're creating your YouTube channel or just social media in general, this kind of goes with short form content as well, is that like audience interests changes over time. So sometimes you have to adapt to that change as well if you want to keep getting a certain number of views. And again, I've learned this the hard way where I am kind of stubborn and I really like the format that I'm doing and I want to continue doing that. But then that's kind of how the channel starts to become irrelevant. And so, like, if you're able to really research what people are interested in watching and stay one step ahead, then you'll always kind of be in the favor of the algorithm. Because if you guys watch Mr. Beast or like other YouTube strategy videos, they always talk about how the algorithm is the audience. So if you kind of feel like, oh, the algorithm isn't really pushing out my video, that's not really the best mindset to have. It's more, oh, I'm not making videos that the audience really likes. So yeah, that's nice to keep in mind as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think this can tie back to the personality thing. Like I've seen so many channels online, like because one thing that still confuses me about social media, like online content creation, is you have all sorts of, or not confused, which I guess it's a good thing. You have all sorts of styles that go viral or like that are famous. You have people with like heavily edited video, scripted packaging. At the same time, you also have people with like their grainy iPhone footage, like just speaking to a camera.
Mhm.
Those get millions of views as well. So it's about just being authentic as well. And then I guess, how do you now figure out what your audience wants to watch?
Yeah. So again, lots of experimentation. Sometimes what I try to do is I look at my demographic. So kind of like I mentioned earlier, my demographic has gotten older, and then their location has kind of changed more to being in the US. And so either I'll talk to some of my other YouTuber friends and kind of compare if our demographics are similar, and then see what style is working. But then in my genre of tech specifically, I'll also kind of do some research to see what videos are doing well right now. And so, for example, recently we kind of had like a full YouTube strategy session with my team, and we talked about how technical videos are doing better when they weren't doing as well 2 years ago, actually. More
So by
storytelling.
technical, do you mean like what do you mean by that? Like technical?
Yeah, so technical like code with me videos. So for
I see.
example, like doing a tutorial on creating an application from start to finish. That's an example of a video that might do better today than maybe 2 years ago. 2 years ago, how I got into tech and made like $100,000 a year. That's just a random title, but that sort of video, more sensationalist, but also more focused on this like really cool motivational story. That sort of thing probably did well like a year or two ago. So now I think, yeah, that genre has also shifted a bit more. I hope that answered your question. I don't know if you
Yeah,
have
no, no,
asked
for
something
sure.
else
Yeah. So
afterwards.
like, one following what are the current videos that have that people watch as
Hmm.
well, so you can get a sense of what they do. I know YouTube, it's a bit used. I haven't tested it out, but they introduced like this
Hmm.
new. I see it in my Creator Studio, like the idea generation AI, or I don't know what even it's called.
Yeah.
Like you plug in something, it'll spit out some ideas. I don't know
Hmm.
if it's connected to like the algorithm or whatnot, but yeah. So number one, like
Hmm.
looking into people who are in this space and some of their videos that have went viral, and then
Hmm.
um, yeah, I guess mostly that, and then what you mentioned, like just trial and error, like trying out different styles. Like you have grainy iPhone footage that goes viral, you have heavily edited that goes
Hmm.
viral, so it's a very big spectrum. So I guess yeah, it's whatever
Hmm.
connects with the audience. So I guess on that theme, so I wanted to ask you, how do you manage this? So how do you manage like researching YouTube, creating content, and your professional career as well? Because a lot of people
Hmm.
are now in, like, say they're professionals, and they would like
Hmm.
to have an online presence because they realize like the amount of
Hmm.
opportunity that you unlock, like it's amazing. Like the
Hmm.
probability of you leveling up is just way more with having an online brand. So how do people
Hmm.
manage it, and how do you manage that?
Yeah. So, um, in the beginning, I was trying to do as many YouTube videos as possible, which was possible for me because, again, I would just sit on a couch and like talk about different topics and then cut the video up and post it. But then the storytelling, the editing, film, like the scenes that we were putting together became a lot more complicated. And so it became really unmanageable for me to do a full-time job well while making high quality YouTube videos. I also have another business too. So like that third business was also, it was hard to juggle all three. So what I ended up deciding, and this is also another Mr. Beast theory, is that try to make the best possible video that you can, like better than the last. Like always just try to make your best possible video, and quality matters a lot more than quantity. So that's kind of what I started doing, and that's how I was able to sustain things. Because I think a lot of YouTube gurus were talking about, be consistent, post every week or post every 2 weeks, and I just couldn't do that. So I started posting every month or every month and a half. And the videos would still go viral just because I was putting a lot of time and thought into making a really good story. Now things have changed again a little bit where consistency matters a bit more. I think quality is still more important in my opinion. But I think, yeah, the audience has changed in what they want. So now I'm adapting to that where I'm doing a little bit less complicated videos, more technical heavy, and more frequent uploads, if that makes sense. And the way that I do that is number one, my editor has saved me a lot because I used to edit videos myself and that would take forever. And so I'll write the entire script. I'll use AI to help me as well. But honestly, ChatGPT doesn't write good scripts yet, or I'm just doing it wrong. So I still kind of manually write my own scripts. I do a ton of research. I film all the scenes. I upload all the footage into my scripts, and then I'll send it to my editor. And so then they kind of edit it as fast as possible. We go back and forth and have meetings if there's something that I don't like or that they need clarification on. They didn't like something I put there. It's very interactive. Like they're not just editors to me, they're YouTube strategists for me as well. So yeah, so that's how we get it done. Sometimes if we have brand deals as well, they are also involved in the making of the video and they'll send us their assets for the commercial. And we usually get that packaged up within 2 to 3 weeks, an entire video. So our post schedule right now is still 2 to 3 weeks, which is very doable with a full-time job. But once a week would be a little tough for me.
I
So
see. And then how about like your like the thumbnails, titles? At what point do you do
mhm.
that? Do that pre, like before even starting scripting and recording, or post? Like
Yeah, I always do them before because I think the idea is really, really important, much more important than uh, the video itself a lot of times. The video, it's hard to say that. The video is very important. Like you have to make a good video too,
but
but
it's not
no
a
one's
good
gonna
video if
click.
people don't click on it. So
Exactly. If no one's gonna click on your video, it doesn't matter if it's the best video in the world. So yeah, always make the thumbnails and titles before. I spend a lot of time just doing ideation because I think that's really important too. So I'll have a ton of thumbnails, just mock-ups. Because to be fair, the real thumbnails get created while the video is being made, because I have a thumbnail artist. So it's kind of hard for him to make all of these thumbnails just for ideas. That can get kind of expensive. So I'll have like mock-up thumbnails and then titles that I think I want to use. And then we'll go back and forth with my team to see which ones we think are best. Then I'll choose a few. And then while the video is then I'll write the script. And while that's being done, I'll send those thumbnails over to the editor for him to actually create. So yeah.
I see. Okay. And okay, so that's and then what's your process like post? So you've researched something. It takes you 2 to 3 times to create a video. Now you've posted it. Now what's after that video? So like, at what point does it give you a positive or a negative signal, or like how long do you wait until the next
Mhm.
video to like make changes? Okay, we like tried this
Mhm.
style. Let's change it. Like, what's that process like?
Mhm.
Like posting.
Yeah, so if I was on my personal laptop, I would actually like show you some examples, but uh, basically in the YouTube studio, there's a lot of cool monitoring tools. So I think the data comes in after 48 hours. So number one, there's A/B testing for thumbnails. So like you can upload multiple thumbnails, and then over time, it'll show you which thumbnails are doing better, which have a higher click-through rate, which is just the percentage of people that are clicking on it versus the people that are shown the thumbnail. So that's a good way to indicate what thumbnail to use. And then watch time, for example, there's usually a graph that shows watch time on the video. So you can analyze based on spikes in the video. So for example, if you have a graph that's going down like this, um, it's just like an exponential curve. You can see like a spike here, for example, which means that people either paused the video here or skipped this section and started the video again here. So there's something very important about peaks that you want to watch because that means you're doing something well. And then valleys are where you're not doing so well. And so you can kind of analyze like what went wrong in that valley. Is the video too slow? Is it not informative enough? Why is it boring? Um, and then actually this part happens before the video, but a lot of times I'll show it to a few people and I'll tell them like, tell me exactly when you get bored and don't lie about it. Like as soon as you want to take your eyes off the screen, tell me. And if it's not more than like 4 or 5 minutes into the video, that means that the video has to change. So that's also kind of how I do a little bit of pre-testing as well. But yeah, so then afterwards, there's analytics that also show like new audience members versus old audience members that are coming in. You kind of want to have a healthy range of both because the algorithm will only push your video out to new audience members if a lot of your old audience members click on the video. So that's pretty important. Um, Yeah, demographic wise for brands, they tend to prefer if people are from the US, like unfortunately, because there's a lot of opportunity all over the world. So it also depends on what type of audience you are trying to target. But brands in tech right now want me to target people in like Canada, US. So that's I also have to check that sort of thing. Yeah, but again, that was like a long-winded way of saying there's analytics that show up within 48 hours, and then I use those to adjust for the next video. So,
But that's good, good info because um, knowing how your thumbnail is doing, number one, because that's the entryway to a video. No point in
mhm,
like you can have like $1 million worth of editing, but no one's actually
mhm,
clicking on it. No point. That your retention as well, like where
mhm,
people get bored, where people don't. And then the third is just overall metrics is like who are the people that are watching this video, old viewers, new viewers, etc. So no, I think that's
mhm,
very good info. And I guess how do you change your content strategy per trends? Like, say, for example, nowadays AI is very big. So, is that something you're doubling
mhm,
down on? Like, just making videos related to AI? I think a couple years ago, it was like the metaverse or like Web 3.0.
mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
how much trends take a part, or is your content strategy all based on on trends? Yeah. Sorry, excuse me.
Yeah, I think it's a mixture. So like personally, I think the channel could grow pretty fast if I just targeted trends all the time, but I think that would suck the joy out of the channel for me as well. So I try to do a healthy mixture because there was actually a really good podcast on this where they were talking about artists, like singers, and how they break out as like performers. And so they were talking about how you should create original music, but original music typically won't go viral in the beginning. So what you want to do is you want to do exactly what the audience wants, maybe follow trends, but while you're doing that, mix in original music. So that's kind of what we try to do as well, where we'll do one or two videos that are pretty much exactly following a trend, and then one or two videos that are original. A lot of times the original videos won't do that well, but it keeps my sanity. And I think over time, then the audience knows that we're more of a variety channel. We won't always have a very specific video that is following a certain trend. Like we'll have different kinds of videos. And it also gives me more flexibility to pivot the channel to a different genre if I want to.
I
So,
see. Yeah. So it's not like all like AI, Web 3.0, NFT, like
mhm.
not nothing. Okay. Yeah. And then yeah,
Yeah.
and I think consistency, which is the biggest struggle
Mhm.
for anyone, is like because if your work is not enjoyable, like there's just you're just gonna burn out sooner or later. So like just
Mhm.
playing the long game, I think that's important as well. Like the format that you enjoy. So I think that's really important. And I guess
Mhm.
so. Um, Another thing I wanted to know. So how do you manage or do you, I guess is the question, just in your like overall social media channel strategy. So YouTube is one part. YouTube is the platform.
Mhm.
Let me put myself here. So YouTube is the
Yeah.
platform. Like if you're famous on YouTube, you're famous basically everywhere. But at the same time, like you can also get famous from other places. You can get traffic to your
Mhm.
YouTube channel. So how do you leverage like Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, like some of these other, or LinkedIn even, because like I think in the
Mhm.
tech space, LinkedIn, I've seen a lot of people go viral on LinkedIn, like with their LinkedIn
Mhm.
post. Like they post an image, very long text, and just
Yeah.
amazing numbers they do. So do you leverage other platforms as well, or are you just doubling down on one?
Mhm. Yeah, that's a really good question because it's something that I've grappled with. So I was for a certain amount of time doing Instagram. I was posting reels on Instagram. We were doing a mixture of like computer science and just like general knowledge reels. And then for a time, I was also a little bit posting on LinkedIn. I also have a Discord server, for example, where I will like do sessions and talk to people there. The I think as a full-time job, uh, doing all of those things can be really important because if like you said, I think being big on YouTube makes it a little bit easier to grow on those other platforms versus the other way around. So yeah, so I think leveraging social media, depending on your goal, is important. So it's always about the goal. Like, what do you want out of this? So like for me, I want to number one, enjoy the creation process and help people. I think those are the number one and number two things that I want with this channel. And then number three, like of course it's good to have an income so that I can actually get paid for what I do. Originally, what I wanted to do was do this full time and quit my software engineering career totally. And so, for that sort of goal, I think it is kind of important to leverage other types of social media as well, just because then you can diversify your income stream. Now, however, I've kind of changed my mind and I want to do YouTube as a side business, just because I started to rely way too much on brand deals and deadlines. And again, it was kind of sucking out the joy of creating videos, like the whole reason I started this in the first place. So, for my goal, I've kind of stopped posting short form content, and it doesn't mean I won't in the future. Like I'm still kind of thinking about doing it again, but it just took up so much of my time that I wasn't really enjoying my life anymore. And so I decided I am pretty happy at my job, and I enjoy the cadence of posting a video every 2 to 3 weeks. And any side money I get from brands is great for my lifestyle. And I like to just randomly go play tennis or pickleball, or like go grab ice cream and not worry about like, oh, I have this deadline for YouTube. Like I want to just have more of a flexible lifestyle. Because I'm not gonna lie, like social media, it's so amazing. Like it's your own business. So you can do whatever you want. You have a lot of autonomy, but at the same time, it's probably one of the hardest jobs I've ever had in my life because it's all falling on your shoulders. So it's not like, if you're at a 100,000 person company where if you make a mistake or if you forget to do a certain task, that it's okay if you don't really reach a deadline. Here, it's like you won't get that money from a brand
Yeah,
deal. Like you
because
will
it's
forfeit.
literally a one person company. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so like another way about it is a lot of people outsource. And I have done a little bit of that with my editing and thumbnail stuff. But a lot of people, for example, will have someone that's producing like a producer on their channel for them, or someone that will post LinkedIn posts for them. And so at that point, you're just full on running a business. And again, I've debated doing that. It's a great strategy if you want to create your own business, and I'd highly recommend it for some people depending on their goal. But for me, I just want to be mostly a creator and create videos, and I don't want to delegate a lot of tasks and be like a CEO of a company. So for me, then it doesn't really work out. So,
Yeah. Then aside from creating content, it becomes more of like just numbers and analytics and just like
mhm,
just this machine. You're meeting this deadline, etc. And I think probably what you've done now is probably I think better in the long run, because you avoid those cycles of burnout. Because now you have this
mhm,
consistent cadence of like posting as well as enjoying your life as well, and as well as
mhm,
working professionally.
mhm,
And then whereas other people, they follow trend, they have a peak, they crash, have a peak, crash.
mhm,
Very common in like content creation space and like startup world. Same principle throughout.
mhm,
Like you have this energy boost, like this motivation, you make videos, and then that's it, you're gone.
for
That
sure.
that's been my story as well for like I think the past couple of months. Like it's this short burst, you post a couple videos, and then that's it, you're nowhere to be seen.
Mhm,
But
for
yeah,
sure.
but I guess so. You mentioned some of the things like starting an online. Like people can approach their online branding as a business, as a hobby, etc.
Mhm,
Um, there's a lot of people who like, because I mean content creation is a very content creators are a very big part of everyone's life now, because everyone at some
mhm,
point consumes content from vlogs to like information on tech. If you're a student, like you watch like
mhm,
studying video, like content creation is the thing. And what
mhm,
advice would you give to people just in general who want to build an online presence? And what are like some of
mhm.
the light at the end of the tunnel, like for like what are some of the opportunities that come with building an online brand?
Yeah, I think this is probably the most generic thing, but it's so true. You have to enjoy it and you have to be passionate about it. Like I've seen people that have built their brands and they're very, very successful. But when I talk to them about their channel or their like Instagram, for example, I'll have conversations with them and it feels like they hate their jobs. And you don't want to put yourself in that situation because it's uh it's really nice and glamorous to think about like having a really big following on a social media platform, but behind the scenes it's a lot of work. So if you don't really enjoy that work, it won't be sustainable in the long run. So I think that's like first and foremost. If you want to be successful, pick a topic or pick something that you really enjoy doing. And especially in the beginning, eventually, if you want to scale up and hire a bunch of people to do the work for you, that's a really great business strategy. But in the beginning, you're going to probably have to do a lot of stuff yourself. So that means watching tons of YouTube videos to learn how to edit, how to strategically create a hook in the beginning of your like in short or Instagram reel, or how to create a great intro on YouTube, and then staying really consistent with that. And I think you mentioned this before, Mohammed, like it's really hard to stay consistent because most times what happens is you post a bunch of content and it doesn't get any traction for the first month and then the first 2 months and then the first 3 months. And maybe you'll have a spike on the fourth month and then it'll go back down again for like months 5, 6, and 7. And then you'll see a spike again. Like it can be very inconsistent, but if you're consistent regardless of the outcome because you love what you're doing, then you'll do really, really well. And again, you have to adapt and change your strategy. So if you're just doing the same thing every time and it's not working, that also won't work. Like there's, different variables that are put into place. And then, sorry, what was your other question?
Well, just in general, like just advice for people who want
Mhm.
to build a brand, like students or working professionals, as well as what
Mhm.
are some of the things that they like actually get from having an online brand. But I guess then that's
Yeah.
the question I'm asking is a bit weird in that sense, because if you approach content creation to get something, then you're
Mhm.
like in that frame of mind of like just chasing.
Yeah.
Versus what we're trying to talk about is like you want to do it with something that you actually enjoy.
Mhm.
But that was the other part, which is like, what do you see at the end of the tunnel? But I guess having that mindset
Yeah.
is not consistent in the long run. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, totally. So if like what you get out of it is um a ton of like pride and satisfaction about like this cool creative thing that you made from scratch. Like it's really cool to see like to go back to my older videos and be like, "Oh wow, like I made this when I first started without really knowing YouTube or how the algorithm works." So it's really cool to see your progression over time. Just because learning things is it's a really interesting way of showing your curiosity. So that's number one. That's what you get out of it. And if that's not enough, then I wouldn't get into this field at all because that's a lot of times at most what people get out of it. A lot of times you don't get high views, you won't get paid brand deals, you won't get all of that stuff all the time. So yeah, if that's all you want, then I would definitely not get into this. There's a lot easier ways to make money, honestly. But yeah, if let's say it becomes successful and you enjoy going through this process, then yes, it opens up a lot of doors. And let's say you want to also use content creation as a way to market your other products. That's also possible. So it's kind of like creating your own marketing agency at the end of the day. Let's say you like the content, but then you want to build a product off of the content. Then you have like a funnel that's already
Mm-hmm.
kind of pre-made, and you can funnel those people to your product. And over time, you can build trust with them. So I think, yeah, it's a great way to build a business as an entrepreneur. Um, but yeah, again, I would caution against going into social media just to get to that end goal because it won't work otherwise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. And then one last question related to content creation, which is,
Mhm.
do you need to be a domain expert to have? So obviously you were in tech, you were already at Target, you've
Mhm.
like gone through the your what do you call it, the your studying academic career, and then now in professional
Mhm.
life as well when you created content, so you had like you were worth listening to because you had domain expertise in tech. Do people need
Mhm.
that to be a content creator?
No, I don't think so. It depends on the topic. Like if I am just some random like high school student that's like, oh, I'll teach you how to get into big tech. I don't have necessarily like the experience or knowledge to teach that. So I guess like if you want to teach something that needs an expertise, it's definitely helpful. But if you're interested in, let's say, like physics, but you have no experience with it, a lot of times you can be creative about how you approach that, just by being different online. So you might, for example, visit a planetarium and then do like an entire research project on how planetariums came to be, or like this is just some random stuff, like something that's maybe not online, that doesn't need expertise, but no one is really willing to do it. And I don't know if anyone's heard of Arac before, but he gave an interview that talked about this, where if you're willing to do something that no one else is willing to do, then it's probably worth watching online. And again, it doesn't have to be really crazy, like sneaking into people's party, like celebrity parties. Like I think that's what he did in the beginning to go viral. But it can be I think can't think of anything off the top of my head, but you have to do research. And
Yeah, yeah,
the bigger gap you see in something, the easier it is to jump into that. So,
yeah. Yeah, like some examples come to my mind. So some of the YouTubers that I used to watch, Cody's Lab, which was like this dude who
mhm,
just, I don't think he had any expertise in like he makes like crazy science experiments, no
mhm,
expertise in like mechanics or like no educational background, but he has over
mhm.
3 million subscribers, 2.2 million subscribers, just does
Mhm.
experiments and just shares it. That's it. And
That's
then
super cool.
yeah, and then like other YouTubers as well. I remember I who did I grew up watching? Ryan Higa was very big. I used to watch him a
Mhm.
lot. Like the
Yeah, me
OG
too.
YouTubers. Yeah.
And Michael
Um.
Reeves has also really popped off, and he does a lot
Mhm.
of like computer science and hardware type of engineering.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Him, we sauce, and like, yeah,
Mhm.
my mind's blanking right now, but a lot of YouTubers.
Yeah.
But yeah, but everyone had like their own style, as you mentioned. Like we'll tie it back, like their own personalities. Like you're not necessarily
Mhm.
watching the video, you're watching that personality like go through that thing. So I think that's very important as well.
Mhm.
Well,
Yeah,
I guess one last question. So the content creation done. We'll put that aside. Now we're gonna
sure.
go back to put our Microsoft tech hats on. Just in
Mhm.
general, since I mean you are a software engineer at Microsoft, you've been in the tech industry for a while. You have Microsoft, Target. You worked in numerous companies, so you have a wealth of experience. And this is non-content creation. First technical question,
Sure.
which is a lot of people now are struggling very heavily into how they actually get into the tech world. I think you mentioned that as
Mhm.
well. Like, so I joined
Mhm.
Microsoft in 2021. Like that was like the golden period. Like during the
Mhm.
pandemic, everyone was hiring like crazy, and
Mhm.
now that kind of has like the balloon kind of burst, and now a lot of people just doubt like do I like should I really study tech, how do I even get into tech? Like I hear Salesforce announced they're not going to hire new people, or like this type of
Mhm.
stuff they hear, like AI is going to replace this and that. So just as a trend, as a work, like as someone who is in the industry, like how do
Mhm.
you see the future, like how, like for people who want to get into the tech world, like what's your
Mhm.
outlook on that?
Yeah, for sure. So I think like I just want to give a disclaimer first and foremost. I think it's really hard to predict exactly what's going to happen. It's easy to fearmonger on like social media about like, oh, like all these things are happening and there are no tech jobs left. But just looking historically, whenever there's like a really new technology that comes out, or there's a high inflation, or there's a recession, there are some industries that get disrupted, and then unemployment just goes really high in those industries, and eventually it kind of cycles out and then changes over time again. So I think that there is definitely a possibility that software engineers will be very much in demand, but what a software engineer will look like will be very different than what it looked like maybe 5 years ago. And so I'm sure people are so tired of hearing about this, but AI, of course, like understanding how to integrate AI into applications, even how to implement it sometimes, understanding machine learning, that's really important. So there's like this article that I read about the new AI assisted developer. So nowadays, developers are expected to have a lot more increased productivity. And so they kind of have to use AI pretty much on the daily in order to assist them with any sort of coding tasks, deployment tasks like the CI/CD process, any of that stuff. And so at Microsoft, I don't know if this is the case for you too, but like my team encourages us to use Copilot, for example, every day. So we have this organization, and if we're part of the organization, we're expected to use Copilot within Visual Studio or Visual Studio Code every single day. We're expected to use Copilot in browser. We have like some internal tools as well that are powered on different LLMs. I think on OpenAI's ChatGPT, different versions of that. So we're expected to use all of that. And then deadlines have also changed because of that. So if you're new in the industry, like how does, I guess this type of advice won't help you. What will help you is learning how to create a lot of personal projects with AI and also learning AI agents. So that's also a new thing on top of AI. Where you can actually use AI agents to execute the tasks for you and also do a lot of decision making for you. So there's like a really cool tool. It's called Operator. It's very inaccessible though. It's like kind of expensive, but I'm making a video on it that's coming up next month. So that will kind of it's an open AI product. And so with ChatGPT, it's like a really cool LLM that you can use and you can ask it questions. It'll summarize things for you. And it can even write like code snippets for you. But that's all it can do. With Operator, it can actually execute tasks for you. So for example, you can do something like say, hey, I want to go to the Timberwolves basketball game on Friday and I want 2 tickets for this game, under $50 for each ticket for the best possible seat. Please book tickets for me. And it'll create like this browsing session in the cloud, and it'll show you exactly what it's doing to search. It'll first like try to understand what you're asking, then it'll make some decisions. It'll go browse the website, find the tickets that kind of match your criteria, and pick the best possible seat, which could be very subjective. Then it'll execute that task. So it'll actually purchase those tickets for you and maybe even send notifications for you, reminding you like, hey, that game is coming up. And so
Oh wow. So
I
like your
it's
own personal virtual assistant, like actual assistant.
yeah,
Oh.
yeah, exactly. And so with that in mind, I don't know if this is generic advice, but I would highly encourage people to start making their own AI agents. And especially if you're looking into entrepreneurship with tech, starting your own business. I think that's really like the easiest way to start making money right now. And it's less volatile than getting into the tech industry and putting all your eggs in one basket. So while you're learning AI and you're building that into personal projects, and maybe you're going to university to learn software engineering or computer science. Alongside that, try to build AI agents while you're starting up, your own business, or try to like dive into social media on the side as well. I would say become a master of none. So try to learn a lot of different things, and I think that will help you a lot. There's like very specific advice I could give about how to apply for jobs and all of that stuff too. I don't know if that would be relevant
But
to
yeah,
talk
I
about.
think no, I think so that advice is important, but now I think the trend is now when no one had really thought about tech that way because like the growth of the tech market was so huge that everyone was like
Mhm.
in every university the most popular major is like aside from business is like computer science. Everyone wants to be in
Mhm.
tech. But now we're at a point like this post layoff that happened, like everyone's now
Mhm.
questioning like how secure is a job really? And
Mhm.
it's very hard to accept that, but like you are now forced to, as you said, like actually approach everything as an entrepreneur, like with an entrepreneurial mindset. So like the
Mhm.
projects you're building that could be a potential source of income, so you don't have to rely on a job per se. So like one thing, for example, my brother does, he creates he uses Bland and like some other stuff to create like AI
Mhm.
receptionists for spas and physiotherapy clinics.
Cool.
That's
Yeah.
like, and yeah, so that's like one example. And I always look at it, I'm
Mhm.
like, it took me so long like to get here, and he's now like doing all this no code and like this click and drag stuff and like building this stuff
Yeah.
out. So yeah, so I think adapting, and then I think from what I get from what you describe is being not being stubborn on like like getting a tech job, like that's the way, like that now it's like the
Mhm.
possibilities are, and people who are in tech already have a edge over people who are non-technical, because when you build
Mhm.
products with like the same AI agents that non-technical people build, like you have that technical expertise. So I think that
Mhm.
that's
For
very
sure.
good advice as well. Yeah, so not to put all, I like the quote, like the thing you said, which is not to put all eggs in one basket and then be a master
Mhm.
of none.
Yeah, for
I think
sure. For
that's the
sure.
way to go.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, it is really hard out there. I'm not gonna lie, because I think you said also you joined Microsoft in 2021. I also joined Microsoft in 2021. So I think during that time, it was the best time to join. So yeah, it is difficult, and I've heard a lot of stories from people trying to get into tech, and it's a struggle even for experienced engineers. So it's even harder for new engineers. But there is a light at the end of the tunnel if
Yeah.
you're able to adapt. So
Well, yeah, getting into tech as well as like staying in tech. That's the problem number two, because you can
yeah.
be in tech, but like you'd never know like what like because after like layoffs and like this post layoffs, like you
Mhm.
realize like hey like it's not like there's more to life than just this. So well,
Yeah, for
perfect.
sure.
Thank you so much, Pooja, for I like 1 hour went by, I didn't even notice, but thank you so much. Amazing things, amazing insights, content creation, amazing lessons learned into your journey as well, how you produce content, and like what your strategy is, and like your some of your thoughts as well on like AI and advice for people. So all amazing
Mhm.
stuff. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was really fun chatting with you, and yeah, I learned a lot too from the session. So thanks so much for inviting me.
Perfect. Sounds good. And if you guys are watching this live, remember, well, if you're watching this on YouTube or listening to on Spotify, podcast is on Spotify as well. You can click the link in the description. You can join our free school group, and then that way, for future guests, you'll be able to join live and ask questions. So perfect. Thank you guys for watching, and thank you, Pooja, for being in the episode.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Okay. I guess if I press end event, it'll end the recording and end the session as
Okay,
well. So we're good. I'll just edit this bit out. But yeah, but thank you. It was amazing.
cool.
Lots of
Yeah.
good information. So
Yeah, no worries. Again, thanks for inviting me. It was really fun.
yeah.
But yeah, cool. I'll chat with you later.